I was there. I stood in the place where the history of the world, religion, and art intertwines into one. The Vatican Museums, for that is what we are talking about, are no ordinary gallery. It is a gigantic complex, a labyrinth made up of over a dozen museums, more than 1,000 rooms, and galleries stretching across several kilometers. When I crossed their threshold, I knew I was entering one of humanity's greatest treasuries. I want to tell you about what I saw there, and what every viewer should know about this extraordinary place. Before we dive into the history, let me give you one essential piece of advice if you ever plan to come here. It is absolutely best to reserve your tickets online in advance. If you do not buy them ahead of time over the internet, you will end up standing in massive lines outside the entrance for hours on end, wasting precious time. Booking online lets you skip that completely and walk right in. Once inside, I walked continuously hour after hour, covering kilometer after kilometer on my own 2 feet. The scale of this place is so immense that after a while, fatigue begins to take its toll. But the passion and desire to see the next masterpieces drive you forward. To understand the sheer power of these museums, we must step back in time. It all began in the year 1506, over 500 years ago, with a single sculpture. Pope Julius II purchased an ancient statue called the Laocoon Group, which had been discovered in a Roman vineyard, and displayed it to the public. That was the modest beginning of a collection that today numbers around 70,000 exhibits, of which we can admire about 20,000 on any given day. Over the centuries, successive popes expanded these collections, creating a massive palace complex. Walking through these corridors, I felt history literally surrounding me. One of the most incredible places I walked through, step by step, was the Gallery of Maps. Imagine a hall 120 meters long, its walls covered with immense frescoes from the 16th century. They depict maps of the various regions of Italy and papal territories. It is amazing how accurate geographical knowledge was back then, long before humanity created satellites. Above your head, a golden, richly decorated ceiling shines, taking your breath away. The next point of my trek was the legendary Raphael Rooms. These are 4 reception rooms that Raphael Sanzio, along with his pupils, covered in brilliant frescoes. The greatest impression on me was made by the School of Athens. I had seen this painting hundreds of times in textbooks, but standing in front of it in real life is something completely different. Raphael painted the most famous philosophers of antiquity there, giving them the faces of his contemporary artists, including Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo. It is the quintessence of the Renaissance, a celebration of reason, science, and beauty. At the very end, after a long and intense walk, I reached the place that is the heart of the entire complex, the Sistine Chapel. This is a space that escapes all boundaries and definitions. It was built in the second half of the 15th century, and its dimensions exactly correspond to the biblical descriptions of the Temple of Solomon from the Old Testament. Although the building looks austere, even defensive from the outside, its interior hides the absolute pinnacle of human artistic capability. I must point out one incredibly important thing to you right away. Inside the Sistine Chapel, there is an absolute, strictly enforced ban on taking photos and recording any videos. You have to put away your cameras and phones. This is a moment where technology must give way to pure, personal presence and experiencing art in silence. Initially, the ceiling depicted a simple starry sky, but at the beginning of the 16th century, Pope Julius II ordered Michelangelo to change the decoration. The young sculptor, who considered himself an artist of the chisel rather than the brush, created a work that changed the course of art history. For over 4 years, working under inhumane conditions, standing on specially designed scaffolding with his head tilted upward, he covered the ceiling with frescoes depicting scenes from the Book of Genesis. The central point, the famous The Creation of Adam, is a brilliant visualization of the moment God transmits the spark of life to man. A quarter of a century later, the same Michelangelo returned to the chapel to paint the monumental and dramatic The Last Judgment on the altar wall. To this day, it is in this unique space under the gaze of these mighty masterpieces that cardinals from all over the world gather for the conclave to elect a new pope. and the silent smoke from a small chimney announces the election of the head of the church to the world. The culmination of my visit was descending the famous spiral Bramante staircase. The Vatican Museums are a place you must visit at least once in your life. I am showing you these frames. I am telling you the history, but remember one thing. You must come here yourself and experience it personally on your own 2 feet. No video, no best shots, and no words can replace the feeling of standing face to face with such great art and experiencing the Sistine Chapel live. It is something that absolutely nothing and no one can replace.
Para entregarme el auricular. Nos saludamos entre vos, Salime. Porque si
chcieli jakoś temu zapobiec, tak?
Что, пойдем,